So do we,
I just heard senior center.
But you can go on Pine if you like.
No, I wanna go there. I wanna go there.
Get on the bus if they need to get snacks.
That's from 26M.
Driver volunteer return.
If you want, we can have it on the next meeting agenda.
I was gonna say, can you
Yeah.
just do it under other?
Do it under, we can do it under other, either way.
I'll put it on. Anyone else?
Motion.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Delaney, support by Mr. Honeycutt, that we close audience participation. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Next item.
Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent report.
Thank you. Before I start, are we ready? Not yet? Okay. So I'll
We're just
take,
building up the anticipation.
there you go. All right. I'll take care of mine, and then Mary Ann can do hers, and then maybe we'll close with it, so that's good. I'm going to start with a couple of peer-to-peers. I have one here from a Susan Peterson, and Susan is nominating Shannon Adis. Shannon shared a box of transparencies with Susan when she was out, saved her a trip to the store, so she was giving her a big thank you. And then also from Susan, Susan is thanking Becky Ansel, Rita Zalewski, Miss Doolittle, Tom McDonald, Michelle Nedslick, and Tracy Carroll, all for donating to her Donors Choose project to help Truman's art department purchase their 3D printer. So quite a bit of support for that. So nice job, everyone there. Let me pass out my report. All right, quick count day update. Since our last meeting, of course, we're as we talked, we're still tracking students. There are a few that are still being tracked, but we do have a better picture on where we are. We're currently at 6715. Behind this sheet, you have a spreadsheet which shows the numbers per building, and so that'll break down enrollment per building. And the bold print column will show you what his projection was. And then, of course, the column to the left of that is the enrollment as of today. So in some cases, it's within a few. In other cases, it's a little bit of a bigger margin, either up or down. Again, these are unofficial count results, and we're 14 students above his projected 6701. We will continue tracking the last few students here over the 10 or the 30-day window as allowed. And the only other thing that will impact this is because we heard about this a couple weeks ago, Section 25E did pass again, was voted through in the law, and that's the provision in the law that allows districts to count and work with students in a partial count basis. It's awarded on a per diem for any student that enrolls in the district after the count day, but before the February count. So those partial counts are allowed under the law, and so that will adjust the count, typically in an upward direction in this district. The district received the administrative review information today from RISA. We placed a call, this is Penny and I, to Steve Ezekian to sit down and take a look at the information, learn a little bit more about the districts that were used as comparables. Once Penny, Steve, and I have a chance to review this information, we will share it with the board and use this, of course, to help guide us in our process of determining next steps as we target the remaining deficit. Some of the comps were in our area and made sense. Some were a little further afield, and we just wanted to talk to him about how that was all put together and really kind of break that information down so we can share it in a more concise manner. Echoing some of Mr. Zorn's comments, I enjoyed Truman's homecoming game. Spirit Shacks were fantastic. The weather was great. The team played well for 3 7/8 quarters, being up by as much as 2 touchdowns. Lost it by 1 point in the last minute, but it was a hard-fought game. The homecoming dance went well, and the kids all had a good time. Last week, Mary Ann and I met with Pastor Kozier and Pastor Jones from the Downriver Ministerial Alliance at their monthly meeting. They had a nice luncheon right down the road here at the Northline Church, and we discussed with them ways that retired congregants who were interested could assist our local elementary schools in serving as tutors and mentors. They understand that there's a great need in our buildings, and so they want to continue to work with our elementary principals to provide those supports, and sometimes as actual tutors, and sometimes kind of like the classroom grandmother or grandfather. So definitely that need is there, and we've shared that information with our elementary principals. While we were there, I took an opportunity to talk about the millage and the bond. I passed out stacks of flyers to each of them, and we had a nice Q&A about the millage and how that works, and of course the Taylor School District School Improvement Bond. And I talked to them about public school funding. I mentioned, as Debbie chaired tonight, the adequacy study. I mentioned some of those gaps that we've all talked about, and so they were very supportive of our needs and share at their church level their handouts. A couple of things as a follow-up. We had talked at the Cal meeting, and we had talked at a prior board meeting about policy work. I have been able to confirm with Mr. Palka. He will be here at the next Cal meeting, which will be November 21st, 6 p.m. He'll be sharing information with the board about the policy update process, the adoption process, how his company does that work, and then how the services help, of course, the work I do, and then the work the board policy committee does in this area. So we do have him scheduled. Closed session reference guide, waiting on the legal review process to put the finishing touches on that document. Thanks again to Pat for your work on that, and we'll have that ready hopefully here in a matter of weeks. Some calendar information. Recent Facebook post highlighted the need for better communication. I don't want to piggyback too much on what Carolyn talked about, but I will echo that we'll be hitting this again tomorrow with all of our building leaders to make sure that we're sharing all the things we can share. So not only are we sharing accolades after the fact, but board members and members of the community who wish to attend the events can, of course, find out about them on the front end. A couple of things by way of legislative updates. We had talked at the board meeting not too long ago about zero tolerance. The topic of zero tolerance came up. We had talked about it because it's one of our district goals as we look at the number of students who have worked, or we have worked with long-term suspensions or expulsions. And this bill does ask districts to take a look at things like restorative justice, other alternatives to suspensions and expulsions. It would also prohibit the suspension or expulsion in situations that are solely based on truancy or absenteeism. Obviously, suspensions and expulsions take place all the time for serious misbehaviors, but this bill would ask that they not be used for things like truancy and absenteeism issues. So there's some language that MASB and MASA are recommending be tweaked in this bill, but we're watching this one progress. The other one is House Bill 5868, college credits for substitutes. This is a hot topic. Of course, we've heard about it here at the board level. The proposal is to reduce from 90 to 60 semester credit hours the requirement for a highly qualified approved substitute to work in public schools. So this bill is also tracking through, and there'll be probably some language adjustments to this draft as it moves forward. But clearly, substitute issues and difficulties filling sub-jobs are not only a problem that we're facing, but it's truly statewide. So I'll be interested to watch both of those. Early literacy additional time grant. The Taylor District was awarded the extended time literacy grant. Again, this is in the amount of $87,000. Mary Ann and the school improvement team folks are working on all the targeted initiatives that are intended to raise literacy of our youngest learners. So thanks to everyone involved in this important work. And this is the second year that we've been able to capture that. So good stuff, and excited to see that helping out with our literacy needs. Some elections planning follow-up. In addition to the things I've talked about in the last board meeting and some of the things I've shared in the weekly update, of course, we've been passing out flyers. Had an article in the Taylor Today, article in the Free Press. This week there's a few other events scheduled. I'll be attending Myers Elementary School media event on Thursday morning. Mayor Solers, Judge Salamone, and Mary Ann and I will be there with Principal Tamara Jackson as we kick off the the thank you and the celebration of the Beyond Basics program in support of literacy initiatives at Myers. And of course, I'll be emphasizing the importance of proper funding and support for public ed at that event. So I will work in some millage and bond discussion while there. And of course, Kathy just talked about the event Thursday at the hall, so thanks Kathy and everyone, TFT 26M, for their work helping put that together. We'll have ROTC there, we'll have the Cardinal Singers from West there, Truman's Jazz Band will be there to help entertain, and should be a great event. And the seniors will have a good time, and that'll be an opportunity for them to meet our two newest administrators, me and Mary Ann, and talk a little bit about millage and bond. So we'll be sharing our handouts there as well. Friday morning, I go to another event, meeting with the McDowell PTA, and I'll be joining Principal Lynn Borg as we talk about millage and bond there. And last on the topic of elections update, just a heartfelt thank you to local businesses and organizations who graciously agreed to allow our millage and bond flyers to be displayed at their businesses. So I'm going to just take a moment and share a quick list because it's quite extensive. Big thanks to Jamie McCoy and her husband and other volunteers who've been getting these flyers passed out. It's quite an undertaking. We've got a great group of volunteers doing the legwork on this.